everyone. So far, this is what our game framework does. I want to show you a general pattern, which is how you can add a new command to a game object. And we're going to add two different kinds of commands. We're going to add one command where we can ask a game object if it's off the screen in various directions, and a different command where we can tell it to reset its own position randomly. So, just to review, we have a list of game objects called asteroid list. In a loop, we loop from the 0th location up to the end of the list, and we get each asteroid out and save it in a temporary variable called g, and then we tell g to update and to draw. So whenever we run g.update, if you hold Control and click on update, that takes us inside the game object to the update method, and it shows us what it does. Let's go ahead and drag the tab up here so that it's side by side with main, so that way we can see both of them at the same time. So I want to be able to do something like this. Say, if g dot is off screen, is off, let's say screen bottom. So in other words, if it's off the bottom of the screen, then I want to be able to do something. So you see that it's highlighting in red because I haven't created the method yet. But if you go and you say create method, here inside GameObj, it's created a method that will do exactly this. It says, well, it won't do it until we make it do it, but it's named is off screen bottom, and it returns a Boolean. So inside here, now we just have to put an if statement that tests if it's off the bottom of the screen. So it's off the bottom of the screen if y is greater than 600. So then I'll return true, otherwise I'll return false. So that's is off bottom of screen. Really what I want to test for, though, is not if it's off the bottom of the screen, but just is it off the screen at all in any direction. So is off screen is one that I want to make. So I'll create the method. And you could have tests in here, but I have is off screen bottom. So what if you made is off screen top, is off screen left, is off screen right? Then I could say it's off the screen if is off screen bottom is true, or is off screen top is true, or is off screen left is true, or is off screen right is true. If any of those are true, then I'll return true, otherwise I'll return false. Okay, well we haven't actually written these three methods, we've only written this top one. But you can imagine how it might be useful to have each of these methods separately to test if I'm off the screen in separate directions. And then is off screen in any direction is just a composition of the ones that I already have. So at this time, why don't you pause the video and write these other three methods. Okay, now that that's done, I'd like to be able to say something like g dot set random x. And this would generate a random x coordinate and set my game object to be at that coordinate. But if it's going to be random, I want to provide a range of possible values. So like between 0 and 600, for example. So I'd want it to take two inputs and set our coordinate to be a random x coordinate between those two. So the pattern I'm showing you here is you write a command for your object and write the command as if it already existed. So imagine what do you want the inputs to look like. And then you can hover over it and you can create the method. And then you just have to fill in the body of the method, the inside of the method, to make it do that thing. The only thing to be a little bit careful about is sometimes the computer will guess wrong about what inputs it should have, and it will definitely name them names that aren't very helpful. So instead of I and J, I'm going to call this min x and max x, because it represents the minimum and the maximum x values that I want to have. Alright, so let's create a random x. So I'm going to call this new x, and it's going to be the minimum x plus math.random times something. Well, I wrote 100 here, but that's not going to be very good. So the question is times what? So this number could be anywhere between 0 and 1 less than whatever this is. So the idea is, if I already have the minimum x, whatever that is, how much more do I need to add in order to get to max x? So the amount that I need to add is max x minus min x, because that's the difference between them. But remember, this is 1 less than whatever that is, so I'm going to add 1. You can double check that this makes sense by imagining a couple of numbers here. So let's say the min value I want is 5 and the max value I want is 10. So my new x value is going to be 5 plus some number between 0 and 1 less than this. So what's this? This was 10, this was 5, so 10 minus 5 is 5, plus 1 is 6, so this whole number is 6. So it's going to be 5 plus 1 less than 6, which is 5. So the largest thing this could be is 5, in which case I'd have 5 plus 5 is 10, which was my max value. The smallest thing this could be is 0, in which case I'd have 5 plus 0 is 5, and that's my min value. So I've just verified that this is going to give me everything in the range I want. But I'm not done yet. This is just a variable I created here. If I want to change my actual x-coordinate, I have to set my x-coordinate. I have to set this variable up here. Well, we already have a setter method, so let's just run our own setter method. I'm going to set my x to be new x. And notice when I do that, if you hold Control and click on set x, it jumps me to my own set x, where I take an input and then I assign the new value. Just like we did last time, I want to make a method that is a composition of two different methods. So let's make public void set random position, where it takes a min x, it takes a max x, it takes a min y, and it takes a max y. But instead of copying and pasting this code, I'm just going to run two helper methods. I'm going to set run random x with whatever the min x and the max x are, and then I'll set random y with whatever the min y and the max y are. Well, this variable this method we haven't written yet, but that's your job right now. Go ahead and write that method. All right, now that we've given ourselves a whole bunch of new methods, let's go back to draw. I'm going to delete my if statement from draw, and I'm just going to change how update works. So I'll hit Control, click on Update. So here I'm saying if y is bigger than 630. Well, that's like testing if I'm off the bottom of the screen. So I'll type is off screen bottom, because I already made my own method which tests for that. And this reads a lot more easily. If you want to, you could say equals true. That's a little bit redundant, but if this makes more sense to you to type, you could do it. So if I'm off the bottom of the screen, I want to set a new random location. So I'll say set random x to be between 0 and 600. So I'm setting my own x to be a random number, and then I'll set random y. Let's see, I'm going to set a random y coordinate somewhere above the top of the screen. So it's going to be maybe between -200 and -30, something like that. So the point that I'm trying to make in this video is when you create new basic actions for your game object, new methods like set random x, set random y, then when you write a method like update, you can use your own methods to think more naturally about the problem you're trying to solve, like test if it's off the bottom, and if it is, regenerate its location. Let's make one last change. I'm going to go back to main. Up at the very top here, I was setting some random variables, and I was using it to create my game object. What might be a little bit nicer is I'm going to delete the x and the y, and I'm going to create my game object at 0, 0. But then before I add it to the list, I'm going to have it set its own location randomly. So I'll say banana dot set random. Set random x, and the random x will be between 0 and 600. And then I'll say banana.set random y between -200 and -30. So even though I created it at location 0, 0, I'm telling it to reset itself to a new random location. You might notice there's some red underlining here, a compile time error. If I hover over it, it says, the method setRandom from the type GameObj is not visible. Here's what that means. Hit Control and click on the method. Here it says private. Private means that only GameObj can run it. Nobody else can run it. But I want main to be able to run the method, so I have to change it to public. Alright, so let's run it one more time and make sure that it still works. Great, so I see the same behavior, only now it's a lot more well written and it's going to be easier to extend or to change in the future.